Alright, folks, listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. I've covered this topic quite a bit in past videos about white worshipping in Asian culture. Honestly, the Chinese, they had everything going, they had everything right. They should have never ever embraced Western values. When I say Western values, I'm not talking about the Judeo-Christian values. Heck, I think at this point, throughout the Judeo part, right, just their Christian values, because well, yes, at one point, white people dominated the world, but I mean, that's in the distant past. Look at the UK. The UK is turning into a shithole third world country now. So what has happened to Western civilization? I want to be 100% honest here. And yes, while I'm recording this video, I also want to talk about Candace Owens. Well, yeah, and of course I'm going to talk about Mr. Charlie Kirk. I'm so sorry for what happened. Let's just call it, this was a public execution. And I started the live stream. It was already in this room. I think it was about 10 minutes. It might even be 8 minutes after I saw the breaking news on my cell phone that Mr. Kirk is dead. I said it right at the live stream. I said, I don't think we'll actually ever get to the bottom of this. Let's just call it Charlie Kirk. He was killed by a conspiracy. I know, obviously, you guys saw the guy, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, in custody. But, I mean, that just leaves more question marks to the case versus actually any answers. Candace Owens, well, I saw her video last night. I'm recording this on a Tuesday, so that video already has over 5 million views, and I think obviously she's going to follow up on it for the next probably a couple of weeks. I would like to see some real concrete evidence. She's saying that it was because, you know, Charlie Kirk, on behalf of Turning Point USA, turned down $150 million from Bibi Netanyahu in order to promote pro-Israel agenda, and that happened at the Hamptons between August 4th and August 5th. That's what she's saying, basically. I would like to see a lot more evidence to that case, but at this point, I'm not going to dive too deep into it. I have to be 100% honest. I was never a fan of Charlie Kirk, mainly because of 2 points. He's way too pro-Israel, and he's way too anti-China. He says, so the number one enemy of the American government is the Chinese Communist Party. I think that is 100% false. I think at this point, you guys already know. One nation under blackmail. And you guys say that China is the number one problem. And a lot of you guys actually have this wrong. So you guys keep saying, oh, blame everything on the Jews. That's completely false. I think what Candace Owens is doing is very dangerous. Once again, if you actually have some very concrete evidence, I would love to see it. I have so many questions surrounding this case myself as well. Also, if you look at Candace Owens' career, right, if it wasn't for the Jews, she would have never gotten wealthy. Well, also, I mean, I did mention before, she married a super rich white guy. So her husband's net worth is anywhere between $150 million to $200 million. That's where she got the majority of her wealth. And in her early days, right, she would have never gotten noticed if it wasn't for another Jewish man, Dennis Prager. She came out of PragerU, and then she worked at Turning Point USA with Charlie Kirk, who I think at this point it's very safe to say the reason why Charlie has been so pro-Israel is because, well, he was receiving a lot of money. And maybe perhaps he had a change of heart just recently. So yeah, I would like to see a lot more evidence and development to come out of this story. Then obviously we all know Candace Owens worked for Ben Shapiro at the Daily Wire. I mean, yeah, that is literally 99% of the reason why she's wealthy. Is because, well, if it wasn't for the Jewish man, she would have no money. So that aside, I want to talk about Mr. Charlie Kirk. So the points I do agree on versus the points that I don't agree on. So a lot of people say that the Jews own Hollywood, they own mainstream media. That's actually false. So the Hollywood is not actually owned by Jews. It's actually owned by the Chinese. Yes, you heard that correctly. That's where you guys got a lot of this wrong. I'm not going to elaborate too much for this video. And I did say in my last video about what happened to Irene, right? When I was growing up in China, this is still very much true in 2025. The standard of beauty, they're not really into like white British women or white Italian or white German women. So basically, there's a woman from these two countries, the Russian woman and the Ukrainian woman. That is the standard of beauty for Chinese women, which, I mean, that sounds absolutely insane, right? The white worshipping culture is real. And it's absolute cancer. That's why, it's 100% backfired. Because instead of what we see is happening is that, millions and millions of Asian women, they're getting on their knees for the white man because they see themselves as inferior and they see white people as superior. Off that aside, I want to share something very personal with you guys. So I did mention, right, I was born and raised in northeastern China when I was about 12 and a half years old. So I was born in August and I came to Canada in March of 2005. So I was 12 years and 7 months old. So here are some culture shocks that absolutely shocked me. I know Mr. Charlie Kirk, he criticizes black culture a lot. And he also criticizes Muslims quite often, and also the LGBTQ plus community. And a lot of people say, Charlie Kirk, he's a white supremacist, which I don't agree with. But yeah, he often criticizes white people as well. He's talking about these white, basically leftover women, these cat parents who are unmarried past the age of 30. Many of them are miserable. Many of them are infertile. He tells a straight young man to, pull themselves together, go to church, get married, have children. So this is what I experienced that absolutely shocked me. You won't realize it, if you're born and raised in a Western country. And this is a part I talk about, the collapse of the Western civilization, the fall of white culture. When I first moved to Canada, right, so I was absolutely shocked. I've never, ever experienced anything like this. So you guys have a term called the DINKs, right? So dual income, no children. I keep coming back to this term. And I tell you guys why this is cancer. This concept of DINKs was an absolute shock to me because I was born and raised in a small town. I did not live in the city. So in my suburb, the little town, little subdivision, we're like 30 minutes outside of the city. So there was roughly 30,000 people. Now, to make something clear, every single couple in that village I grew up in, everybody had one child. Of course, this was during the one-child policy. I did mention in previous videos, I have an older sister, I have a younger sister, so they're both half-sisters. This is the direct result of many divorces that's happened in my family. So if you're wondering, for China's one-child policy, it's one per marriage. And because they had so many divorces, so I have a bunch of half-cousins and half-siblings. Well, first of all, when I was growing up, I went to a Chinese school system for about 5.5 years before I moved to Canada, and I went to middle school, I went to high school, and then college and university here. I was always told when I was in school in China, there's something called, you saw it in that movie, the Mulan, the live adaptation, right, where she talks about strong, brave, and true. And at the end of the movie, she added one more character onto her sword. That word is xiao. What is xiao? Xiao is a devotion to your family, or some people call it your filial piety. So, yeah, that was the most important thing that when I was growing up that was taught in Chinese schools. I don't know if they still teach this anymore. Honestly, I don't think they do anymore because I was always taught by my teachers ever since grade 1. The most important duty in your life is that filial piety, is that you must get married first, and right after marriage, you must give your parents a grandchild. I'm 100% serious. That was being taught to me every single day in the Chinese school curriculum. You might think that's ridiculous, but, well, I mean, there's actual saying you can ask any Chinese person. So, in your life, you have 3 responsibilities. You have 3 filial pieties that you must fill out. And the number 1 is that you must get married, and right afterwards, you must have children. Now, in 2025, it is still 100% illegal to have children out of wedlock. And to tie this to black culture, I talk about the issues in the black community. You have to admit that, yes, there is absolute massive problems in the black community, especially for black Americans. Well, yeah, 72% of black children in America are being born out of wedlock. And a lot of black people say, oh, look at these rich white men, these rich white celebrities. Why are they going out there to adopt black children? That seems to be a little bit demonic. That seems to be a little bit sick. Well, I have a question. Why are there so many black children that needs to be adopted? Yeah, why don't you answer that question for me? So Mr. Kirk, he's right about some points. Listen, you cannot have children unless you get married first. There's no such thing as having children out of wedlock. That's why it has been illegal in China since day 1. That was never ever allowed. That was the greatest sin you can ever commit. And it's also very important vice versa. If you do choose to get married, then you must have children. There's no such thing as a DINK marriage. So a lot of people ask me, how come China's divorce rate is going up like this? So in 1980, the divorce rate was 2%. In 1990, it was 5%. In 2000, it was 15%. In 2009, it was 30%. In 2019, it was 51%. In my hometown, it's 71.4%. I will tell you guys exactly what happened because, the Chinese people, they started acting like white people, okay? White people, you want to talk about, oh, your population is collapsing, it's going down like this, birth rate is going down like this, white genocide. Why are so many white people allergic to having children? Because I was absolutely shocked. When I first moved to Canada, I lived in a small town. I did not live in Ottawa. I'll tell you guys the name of the small town. So it is called Stratford, Ontario, not the one in the UK, not Stratford upon Avon where Shakespeare is from. So yeah, that town has roughly 32,000 people. When I was going to high school and middle school there, it was over 90% white people. That is no longer the case anymore. And two things that absolutely shocked me. I met so many of these, young Canadian white couples who are dinks. They get married, and I asked them, how come you're raising 2 dogs and 2 cats? They said that, oh, having children, I mean, that's just whack, bro. Like, that's not cool. Like, why do you need to have kids, man? Just, stay married and just raise a couple of dogs, couple of cats. We're just the animal parents. That's it. Listen, that kind of behavior, that kind of culture, okay, it's a crossover between bestiality and necrophilia. Why do I say necrophilia also? Because I've seen so many of these white couples, let's say they had a family dog for 10 years, the dog passed away, they have a portrait of their dog or their cat in the middle of the living room. They're like, oh, look, this is Buddy, we had Buddy for 10 years, or this is Rocky, and this dog or this cat passed away 5 years ago, so we have this portrait of our former cat and former dog. They treat their cat or their dog like some kind of a martyr. Now, okay, I mentioned the title of this video, right? White worshipping has destroyed Asians. So this time when I went back to China, so I was in China for 6 months. I returned this spring. Every single Chinese city I visited 24 different Chinese cities, from the north to central China to southern China. Oh my goodness. Okay, here's a shocking stat I mentioned right in my divorce video. 80% of Chinese women living in mega cities in China, living in Beijing, in Shenzhen, in Shanghai, in Wuhan, in Nanjing, in Chongqing, in Chengdu, in these cities, 80% of Chinese women will never ever become mothers. I mean, this is 100% a disaster. You're looking at the greatest population collapse that is about to happen in China. It's already happening in Japan, and China is next. So many of these young Chinese couples, and I have already laid out the path. I said, you don't have to get married. Nobody's forcing you. However, there's no such thing as having children out of wedlock. If you want to have a child, you must get married. You absolutely must. Marriage is not a joke, and there are rules you have to obey. And if you do choose to get married, then the very, very first thing you must do as a man, okay, stop blaming this on women, because the reason why, women have so many negative emotions is because women, they can only control sex. That is the only thing they have control over. When you're talking about a commitment, when you're talking about a relationship, when you're talking about a marriage, when you're talking about starting a family, when you're talking about raising children, men have 100% control, okay? That is up to you as the husband. You must make sure that right after you get married, you better make sure that your wife is getting cream pied 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times every single day. You better make sure to knock her up as soon as possible. And why do I say that? I'll tell you guys why. Here's something you guys don't understand about the divorce statistics and why it is so high now. Why do I say that? As soon as you get married, you must make sure that you have to knock up your wife as soon as possible. Because this point, okay, if a woman has a child, okay, that is the greatest deterrent on earth, in any single country on earth, that is going to prevent her from filing for divorce. Really, really think about it, right? So I've showed you guys, I posted a 12-minute video about going to a Chinese marriage market. Okay, so obviously they have these papers. So the man, they have these blue sheets, and the woman, they're on these pink sheets. And if you look at the marriage requirements these men have for these Chinese women, so a lot of these modern Chinese men are very desperate. They said that they're okay with a woman that has been divorced as long as she's not a single mother. Remember that, okay? I did mention in previous videos, men, they do not like fat women, they do not like old women, they do not like a screaming woman with crazy attitudes. And also, I would say there's one requirement that tops it all. Nobody on earth wants to deal with a single mother. I don't care what you say. It doesn't matter if you're black or white or Indian or Chinese or Korean or Japanese, Filipino. It doesn't matter. Nobody wants a single mother. Imagine if you're okay with being a beta, if you're okay with being a simp, right? You actually get married to a single mother. By the way, okay, I'm saying single mother. So if you're widowed, that's the exception, okay? Throughout Chinese history, so anytime if a woman's widowed, if her husband went to the battlefield and he was killed, yes, that woman is allowed to get married again and to have more children, because if you're widowed, that's not your fault. But if you're someone who is extremely unresponsible and you end up becoming a single mother, nobody ever wants that. Imagine, yeah, you just try to discipline someone else's son, and the kid tells you, "Oh, you stupid you're not my dad. Go yourself." That's what you have to put up with every single day if you try to date or marry a single mother. And I don't care what these modern women are saying. They're saying that, oh, stop being so judgmental, and I was a victim and all of this that happened. You guys don't understand the circumstances. It doesn't matter. And these women know deep down, as soon as they become a single mother, the probability of them finding a high value top tier man is pretty much close to zero. So that's why it's so important for you to have a child, because that is going to be the single biggest deterrent to keep your wife by your side for the rest of her life, because she knows that as a single mother, her life will be miserable. So here's something very interesting. In Canada, the divorce rate is roughly 50%. So you guys might think that, right, if the divorce rate is 50%, that means that roughly half of Canadian children are being raised by single mothers. Wrong. A single mother rate in Canada, remember, divorce rate is 50%. Single mother rate, 22%. So that is the actual divorce rate in marriages where their children are being involved. And if you look at the United States, right, so the percentage of children being raised by single mothers is 37%. The reason why it's so much higher than Canada, well, for the most part, it's because Black and Hispanic Americans. I've covered a lot on this in past videos. For white and Asian Americans, it's about 20%. I understand nothing in this world is perfect, right? Sometimes you can do everything right in your marriage, even if the couple, they follow the rules, even if, let's say, they're both virgins on their wedding day, and they think they can actually work everything out, but they still end up getting divorced. But once again, you're looking at 20% divorce rate. Here's something that's very interesting, all right? I did mention, right? In Chinese cities, the average divorce rate is 60%. In my hometown, it's 71.4. It's actually the second highest in China. However, in the rural countryside in China, in these small towns and villages, the divorce rate is 20%. And it's very obvious if you look at the fertility rate. So in the Chinese countryside, the fertility rate is 1.5 children per woman. Almost every single couple that gets married in the Chinese countryside, they're guaranteed to have at least one child. Some families are still having 2 or 3 children. However, here's something that's shocking, okay? In the Chinese cities, roughly 60% of marriages are DINK marriages now. Yes, DINK. Dual income, no kids. That is 100% cancer for any society, because you guys know what happens, right? A lot of these couples, after they get married, even though they say they're dinks, they don't want to have children. How come they're always adopting cats and dogs, right? I've seen this everywhere. Every single Chinese city I visited, the vast majority of these couple who are getting married, they do not want to have children, but instead they're adopting cats and dogs. Guess what happens? Couple years later, they're divorced. 100% guaranteed, okay? I said this before. So in China, 73% of divorces are initiated by the woman. However, okay, if you're dealing with a DINK marriage, dual income, no children, there's a 99 to 100% chance at some point your wife might not leave you now. Maybe it's going to happen in 2 years' time, maybe in 4 years' time, maybe in 6, 8, 10 years' time. At some point, that woman is going to leave. I'm just telling you guys, because at some point that woman's going to think that I'm just wasting my time. I mean, even though we're married, it's just like we're in a relationship. We're not raising a family. We're not having any kids. What's the point of all of this? Might as well end it all. So I'm telling you guys, here's something that's shocking. So remember, in all the Chinese mega cities, the average fertility rate is anywhere between 0.6 to 0.8 children per woman. So roughly 60% of marriages in Chinese cities now are childless marriages. Here's something shocking, okay? So in those cases, okay, where a Chinese couple gets married, they do not have children, they enter DINK marriage, right? So the divorce rate is roughly 85 to 90%. Yes, you heard that correctly. 85 to 90% chance of getting divorced. However, if that couple chooses to have a child, or in some cases 2 or 3 children, the actual divorce rate in those divorces that where children are involved is actually 20%. So I mean, the decision is up to you. Do you want 85 or to 90% chance of a divorce versus 20%? That's where everything went wrong for China, when they started embracing Western imperialism, when they started worshiping white people way too much. And one final point, a lot of people are saying that, well, I mean, raising children in 2025, it's extremely expensive. Yes. Also, you have to remember this. This is why it's so important. It's up to you as the man of the household. You are going to make this happen. And only you can make this happen, because something changes biologically when a couple has a child. It's never ever going to be the same if you adopt a dog or a cat or a hamster or a guinea pig. It's never going to be the same. Once again, it's just it's bestiality. It's 100% sick. That's why so many of these couples are divorced. I can guarantee you this because I have never ever been wrong. Okay, I'm not claiming that I'm the marriage or divorce expert. So in all of the couples I have seen in China, right? We're talking about hundreds and hundreds, possibly over 1,000 over the course of my lifetime. And I've seen some of these couples full of red flags. I'll say that, oh, this Chinese couple, they're going to be divorced in a couple years' time. And it turns out I'm absolutely correct. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, divorce rate in my hometown is 71.4%. So if I just say they're going to be divorced every single time, I'll be right over 70% of the time. The only time I've been wrong is that when I see a couple who seems like they're genuinely happy with their marriage, they genuinely love each other, and they're willing to sacrifice everything to make their marriage work. I've seen these cases where I said, oh my god, this Chinese couple, they're absolutely perfect, match made in heaven. They're going to stay married for the rest of their lives. And I found out a couple years later, they're divorced. So yes, in those cases I have been wrong, but anytime I have predicted a divorce that's going to happen in a Chinese family, I have never ever been wrong, and it usually happens very quickly. Within the next 2-3 years, the couple will be divorced. And once again, worshiping your dogs, worshiping your cats like they're gods, it's 100% cancer for modern marriages. And why do I say that? It's up to the man of the household, because when you have a child, something changes within that man biologically, and something also changes within the woman biologically. I've covered this in past videos, why the divorce rate is so high for lesbian couples. Well, it's because of this. As soon as this lesbian couple, they adopt a child, usually in the vast majority of lesbian marriages, there's usually one super masculine woman. So many people, they call this woman a dyke. Right, so and also there's the one that's super feminine. Every time they adopt a child, the woman that's feminine, she will stop being a lesbian. She will turn into a heterosexual woman, because her biological instincts takes over when she looks at her child, which is so vulnerable, and she looks at her partner who's a dyke. She's going to say that, you know what? I need a real man. I need a tall, strong, muscular man in order to protect me. And he's going to become the protector and the provider for me and for my children. It's not going to be you who is putting on this man face, who is faking to be a man, even though you're a biological woman who is acting like a dyke. So every single time when a lesbian couple adopts a baby, it doesn't matter if it's a baby boy or baby girl, the lesbian that is more feminine, she's guaranteed to file for divorce every single time. It's the same thing when a man and woman gets married. As soon as this couple has a child, something changes in that man biologically. He will do everything in his power. Don't talk about the inflation. Don't talk about the rising cost of living. This man, he will work 60 hours, 70 hours, 80 hours, 90 hours a week. He will do everything in his power in order to provide and protect his family, in order to make sure that he can pass on his legacy onto his child. And this is where Mr. Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, this is where they're absolutely correct about. It's so important to find Jesus, to get married, to have children. Because as soon as you're married father with a child, something changes within you completely. You just simply become a better person. I'm coming back to the point of Black America. So I did mention, so a lot of black men, they're posting these videos on social media. They say the reason why they don't want to deal with black women is because they're so angry, they're full of attitude, they're screaming like demons. Well, 75% of black women will never ever be married. That is a fact. You can go on Black Demographics. The site is 100% run by black people. They're the ones who are tracking all of this data. And also, 54% of black men in America are currently single and childless. Only 25% of black men are married with children. That is the biggest issue in the Black American community. And if you guys don't believe what I'm saying, just go around and try to observe your surroundings. I'm telling you guys, nobody in this world will ever work harder than a married father with children. Never ever forget that. When you're married with children, everything in your life will change, and that man simply becomes a better person. His moral values will improve, the contents of his character will improve, he will donate more to charity, he will work harder than he's ever worked before, because he is a married father with children, because that is the only way we can continue as a civilization. Just remember those points, and I want to elaborate so much deeper than this. That's why I will expand on this topic. So I will do one of those podcast style videos where I'll be sitting down, and they will serve as a preview on what you guys can expect from this channel when I move on to producing videos full time sometime next year. It doesn't matter what your ethnic background is. Doesn't matter, you know, if you're a black man or a white man or Arab man or Hispanic man or Indian man. It doesn't matter which part of the world you're living in. Just remember everything I have covered in this video. When you get married and when you become a father, you will do everything in your power. You will put the world on your shoulders just to make sure that you can provide for your child, and to make sure that you can provide for your wife. You just simply become a better human being. And despite all the points that I strongly disagree with Charlie Kirk about Israel, about China, he's absolutely right about this. So if you're a Chinese person that is watching this, stop worshiping white people. Stop worshiping their Western imperialism. So what they started, this movement, okay, the white people who want to blame black people, who want to blame Muslims, who want to blame other immigrants about their population collapse, yeah. Why are so many white people allergic to having children? And don't tell me this is not true, right? I've met personally hundreds, if not thousands of these white people who are married, and they adopt a dog, and then they adopt a cat, and they get a fish tank, and they get a frog or something, and they say that, oh, this is my family, because having children is not cool, having children's whack. I have seen way too many of these DINK marriages, and I'm just telling you guys, and the numbers are very obvious, especially if you look at China, right? In a Chinese city, if a couple gets married, 20% chance of a divorce. If it's a DINK marriage, 85 to 90% chance of a divorce. There's no such thing as a childless marriage. Just remember that. There's no such thing as a gay marriage. There's no such thing as a lesbian marriage. And there's no such thing as a DINK marriage. That's where the white culture started to fall. That's why Mr. Charlie Kirk, he often criticized white culture as well in America. Yeah. Why are so many couples going to DINK marriages? If you don't want to have children, fine, do not get married. But if you do choose to get married, then you absolutely must have children to pass on your legacy, to solidify your marriage. Never, ever forget that. And also, just one last point, if you guys want to save the Western civilization, go to church, find Jesus, and Christ is King. This topic is going to be continued.
Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing.